Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Viewers, today what we are watching in Bangladesh, this is a new story. This is, we can say, somebody say it's a glorious story. Some rumors are saying it's not a glorious story. So somebody is saying something and other body is saying other thing. In this context, to find out the truth and the facts, so I have approached a very well-known academician, a researcher and economist, Professor Dr. Rashed Titumir. He also has global experience. He worked in the global organizations like UNEP, ActionAid, and many other organizations. And he look at the global development and other countries with the perspective of economy and the development and their relationship to the governance. So that's why I have requested Professor Dr. Rashed Titumir to be with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us. So coming to the point, can you little bit explain
Thank
us?
you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So can you explain us, because you are a professor, you work very closely with the students, and definitely you are a well-known economist, not only in Bangladesh, but also in globally. We know your work very well. So how you see this situation? Why this situation evolve?
Let me start by putting my condolences to the martyred for this upheaval that has occurred in Bangladesh. This was inevitable. There are one win and there are two defeats. The win is that there is a relationship between politics and economics. And if you are to talk about if there is an absence of and lack of representation in your polity, then you have a model which leads to and which has led in Bangladesh and in many parts of the world a kind of a one-party dominance. So when there is a lack of legitimacy or lack of representation from the people, then obviously that creates a social approval amongst the polity. Because at the end of the day, it is a people's republic. So if the republic is not people, then obviously there is a disconnect, and that led to the inevitable eruption, resentment, disappointment, whatever you would like to call. And that led, there is a huge social approval against irrepresentativeness, against one-party dominance, against non-rights in terms of civil and political rights, as well as social economic rights. So that's a win for the people because of the social approval. The defeats are two, and that has a global implications as well. The first one is that you cannot survive on lies. And if you are really looking at, even in case of Pakistan, if you remember the history, Ayub Khan told us about the decade of development. But what we have seen, that is not based upon truth. So simultaneously, what we have seen in Bangladesh, a manufactured truth base of development surprise or development wonder, that has also caught the imagination of the international community. But as you have mentioned, and I have been writing since 2009, and there are books, my latest book in 2021, which is Numbers and Narratives in Bangladesh's Economic Development, really shows that how manufactured it is. And secondly, it also suggests that there is a rentier society. So it's not crony capitalism. It's completely different. State is giving resources resources to cling to the Louis XVI Republic of France, where state is giving resources, and you could see backed by evidence. If you really look at during the last 15 years, our debt has increased from two, when she started our government, it was 2,76,000 crore taka was our both domestic and external debt. Now it has ballooned to 18,36,000 crores, which means during her time, there has been an increase of 85% of the debt, because in order for her to cling to the power, the state has to really provide rent to the people who would keep them in power. And I can go on with the statistics, but I don't want to bore your audience. If you really look at the banking sector, the debt default has mounted. If you really look at the non-liquidity sectors like our rivers or our forests, those are encroached by, and it created a resource-dependent syndicate, a patronage system that really kept her in power. So the defeat of lies. So if any governments tries to create a garden path of disinformation and creates a kind of a lie that development first, democracy second, that's a fallacious argument. So that has been defeated. The third defeat, which is very important in the sense that if you really look at the way it has been in place, that you have to have a isolation between politics and economics, as if they go separate. And that led to a kind of an understanding that there is no alternative to her. That has been defeated. Because if you really look at the international arena, or even by domestic commentators, they have been saying, who is her, or what is the alternative? So you cannot argue that, because you have to give rights to the citizen, because in order for a post-colonial state to be a citizen state, the right must be given to the citizens, and you cannot have it. So this argument, and that has caught surprise even to Indians, the US, and to an extent to the Chinese, who have been following Bangladesh's development, because to them it has come like a surprise. But to us, it was never a surprise, because one has to really keep in mind, it's not the external forces that change a polity. It is the internal force that changes the polity.
Thank you. I think you have elaborated really well. And when I was reading what you are telling us, I was reading your articles. I did not have the chance to read your book, but I was reading your articles, and you are concisely and writing that. And this is a vindication of your thought. And this is, I think, we should learn from these lessons. So, but it happened. So what happened? So happened. So how you see from here? So from here, where the Bangladesh will go? Because on one side, we have seen, so a well-known microfinance banker, a Nobel laureate, he is back in the business. So will he create a balance between the state and the people's need? That is very fundamental, because bankers have sometimes a different thinking than the development practitioners.
My thoughts are that we need a government that really looks at the causation of this eruption. So that has to be, it should not be just mere correlation, or it should not be held swayed by populism. One has to remain popular, but one should not be populist. And that's and particularly in the era of misinformation, disinformation, facts, alternative facts, where you constantly create narratives. So what I would really would like to see, that obviously one has to stabilize the country in terms of law and order. So that's the first step. But what is really required is to understand what is the sources of the grievances. The sources of the grievances emanates from the social contract, because you don't have a social contract. Social contract is constitution. So that must ensure that all power rests to the citizen. So which means separation of power, which means there is a check and balance, which means that like the colonies, you don't have bureaucrats acting as a master. So you need devolution of the government. And obviously you need capabilities to withstand the international pressure, as well as Bangladesh being at the realm of Bay of Bengal, joining East and Southeast Asia, South Asia and Southeast Asia. It must demonstrate an inclusive foreign policy. So those are the tall tasks, but we are there. And simultaneously, we are hopeful and we have trust in people who are always and who have always demonstrated that their rights must be protected. So this is a long task ahead in terms of really having a constitution that really provides them that people are owner of the republic. So that is a huge task. And simultaneously, as you know, there are at the people level, there are issues. So inequality is ever increasing. Then simultaneously, you have seen the divide, the kind of benefits that oligarchs have received, because it has turned into a clientelistic state where the oligarchs where the money makers and rule makers have colluded, and that's in the banking sector, and we are passing through an unbearable, prolonged, protracted inflation, which has not only affected the general mass, sliding them into poverty, it has also created a break in the whole society. So middle has gone to lower middle income people have gone to, so even the government statistics suggest that there is an increase in poverty in certain areas. And simultaneously, if you really look at, we should have had there been right kind of strategies, we should have been demographic dividend. But what we see is unbearable, a sense of precarity where people, particularly graduate unemployment, according to the government statistics, has doubled. Okay. And to everyone's really disappointment, that 3 out of 5 women are neither in employment, nor in training, nor in education, which is 3 times of the global average. So the average NEET population, neither in education nor in employment or not training, is in case of Bangladesh, the population of 15 to 24 is almost 40%, whereas the global average, according to International Labour Organization, is around 20%. So you have seen why there is a driver for an emancipation from the sense of precarity. So you have a huge underemployed, disguised employed, and the model they have pursued is not an investment-driven model. It's a consumption-driven model, which would definitely, as everyone knows, would not take you to the sustainability. So most of the employment, 85% of employment is in informal sector, without any rights, any decent wage. So you could imagine why this disappointment, anger has come up, while there has been a disinformation of narrative that it has created, like this country is in a development surprise state. And I'm not talking about in terms of rights, because we do not have a social security. the social safety net programs are erroneous, both in terms of exclusion error and inclusion error, because the whole social safety nets were politicized. Those who should be in the social safety net are not in the list. Those who shouldn't be are in the list. So there are underlying reasons for this, and this is true in many cases and many parts of South Asia. So there are a transitional volatility that you observe across South Asia, and same is applicable of the oligarchic process in whole Africa continent.
Okay, I think we are coming to conclusion of our discussion. Only one quick questions, because there is a lot of rumors, and Indian media, you must have seen, they are running day and night transmission that sometimes some other foreign countries has intervened in Bangladesh to change the regime. What do you think of that?
You see, as I said, amongst the two defeats that I said, one defeat is the defeat of the narrative, and the second defeat is that there has been always an understanding that external process determines the internal process. I say no, it is the internal compulsion that determines. Rather, the whole process have left all the stakeholders which provide strategic importance to Bangladesh in wilderness. Because their assessment was that there is hardly any alternative to it. And given the volatility in the geostrategic map, they are kept in wilderness. So when there is an assessment that really in the fluidity, then you are exposed to different kinds of fake news or alternative facts, what they used to call, or disinformation. Everyone has to come to the terms, and that's missing in whole of South Asia, is to really have a introspection. Should we, South Asia, remain a least integrated region? Should we not be concerning about people, or should we be concerning about having a false narrative and swayed by populism and hatred, bigotry, or should we establish a new South Asia that both of us are interested to have in South Asia? Thank you.
I think you ended your discussion with a very beautiful word, and it reminds me, one of you are a very big initiative. Imagine New South Asia.
Exactly.
So I think that is the right time. Really, we start to think about imagine a new South Asia, and it can really help not only one Bangladesh, but Pakistan, and everybody will be beneficiary of that. If we are talking about. And I look toward to you, so you will take a new step and reintroduce this imagine new South Asia.
We have to really find out people from India, because that's a difficult task. If we can find
we will talk later on. We will talk on that. So thank you so much for your interview, and we will hope that we can also organize one seminar or webinar, and you can give a briefing to the participants. So what are the real causes? Thank you so much.
Happy to.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.